Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to When We Walk. This is a podcast where we discuss the questions we all ask as we walk through life. My name is Micah.
I'm Shireen.
Let's chat.
Okay, so the very first parenting book we ever read.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Parenting by the book? No.
I don't think we should say it. Let's not
I don't even know that was...
There is so many.
Did we ever even read one? Called
Yes.
Parenting by the Book? I don't know. Did I just make that up?
No, I think that is
Okay. All right.
a parenting book.
Okay.
I don't know if we read it, though.
I
but
do
there's
know.
so
I do
many.
know. Yes.
I think
remember
you know
now. Yep.
We're not going to talk about it because it's maybe controversial because we're of a
Yep.
different generation now. But I remember reading it and I was like, I can't wait to bring this baby home. We are going to, this is the way to do this.
Boom, boom,
this is
boom,
the way to
boom.
do babies.
System.
And
You got the system.
And it didn't work. And I remember picking up that book.
The system did not work.
The system did not
Yes.
work. And I remember picking it up and throwing it across the room saying, this guy knows nothing about parenting.
Oh my gosh.
And from that point forward, I think I resolved to I do not like parenting books. And I rarely have read. We did read a really good one not long ago. But parenting books are helpful. There's so much out there.
Into them with a lot more skepticism after that.
After that, I did.
It was people would recommend things and you'd be like, I don't know. But there's some good stuff out there.
There is.
Yeah.
There's good principles, I'm realizing, in a lot of what's out there. Mm-hmm. But when you get down to real life,
Yep.
and you are in the thick and throes of parenting, whatever the situation is, whatever phase of life you're in, you need somebody instead to just walk it with you. And that's when I realized I'm just going to go to the people who I know or seem to be doing this pretty well, who are seasons ahead of me, and glean from them. Because they seem to have somehow figured it out.
Yeah.
And that is real life troubleshooting
Yeah.
and not a book.
Yeah. That's true.
So parenting theories.
Yes,
there are
parenting
so many
theories.
to
There
choose
are a lot
from.
out there. There are a lot out there. And we're in a new phase.
We are.
With more and more teenagers in our house and less little kids.
We have middle school and high school. That's it
and that's
now.
it now.
Yeah, that's the
crazy.
season we're in.
Yep. And so I've just been thinking a lot about how we parent them, because I would say we're in a new season of challenge, trying to figure. It feels like we're starting over again in this new season of okay, teenagers are very different.
Yep.
And we need to be intentional and aware of what we're doing and what we're not doing and all of that.
And the ways that the things we did before aren't working in the same way or aren't working at all.
Right.
And we have to rethink some things.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good advice out there. There's a lot of good instruction. There's a lot of good people we can follow, and we do.
And we are not parenting gurus by any stretch of the imagination.
No. But I had this thought recently, though, that I like simple and clear. And so if there was one thing, we could teach our kids,
like silver bullet,
overarching principle that just kind of made its way into every area of their life and would help give them guidance or whatever they needed for every area of life, what could that be? If I could teach them one thing, what would that one thing be?
So
what
would that one thing be?
Yeah, well, I think so. The reason this question has been coming up is our actual lives.
Yeah.
But then I've been reading Proverbs.
Oh, okay.
And what you discover in Proverbs is, it's a book of wisdom, right?
Right.
It's just all wisdom. It's just do this, don't do this. Here's advice
Pretty
for this
practical
situation.
for the most part.
For almost every situation in life. It deals with relationships and money and time management,
marriage,
and motivations,
and friendship,
speech, communication, all of it. And so it hits it all. And the beginning of the book, the first 9 chapters, are all really a father talking to his young son.
Oh, yeah.
About some big principles in life. And he says things like, watch who you hang out with, and don't go into debt, and don't commit adultery, and all of these types of things. But the big overarching theme of those first 9 chapters that really sets up the whole book is gain wisdom.
Yeah, that's so true.
Get wisdom in your life. And it just got me thinking, if the one thing we could give our kids is wisdom, it would then set them up for thriving and success, in a sense,
in every area
of their lives.
That's so true.
Because that's really what Proverbs is all about, is a father talking to his son about the value of wisdom and then applying that in
every
a multitude
area.
of ways. Yeah.
So wisdom.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've
And
talked
that-
about this before. Like
We have.
You know, like we've gone back to it at times, but we kind of lose sight of it in the midst of wrestling with the
because
day to
it
day.
feels so like philosophical.
What does that even mean? Yeah.
Right. It feels not
that's true.
like it's not handles
Mm-hmm.
in ways that in the moment of parenting, no matter what phase you're in, you need like a handle. I need something to hold that I can put into practice.
Yep.
And the idea of just, I need to give my child wisdom. I want
does that
them to
even mean?
gain wisdom. Okay. What does that mean? How do I impart it? I know for me, I hear that and I'm like, I don't feel very wise myself. I'm still in process. But I think when you explain it that way of like, gosh, when I read the book of Proverbs, you do read it and you go, well, yeah, this feels pretty doable. It is pretty practical in a lot of ways. And you read it and kind of go, well, yeah, that is how you should live.
Yep.
But it is harder to it's harder to live it out personally for some people, and it is harder to teach it.
Yeah. Yep. So maybe let's define wisdom.
Okay.
And then we can talk about how to
All right,
how to
Pastor.
teach it. So, well, biblically, again, Proverbs tells us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
Oh, so that's a good place to start.
That doesn't mean we need to be scared of the
Right.
Lord. That's not what the fear of the Lord means. It means a healthy reverence and respect for the presence of God, that there is a God, that wisdom comes from knowing that you are not your own God.
Yes.
Right? Like there is
You're not in charge.
a divine being
You're not in
who
control.
has set this whole world in motion and is next. He's personal, the person of God, that he's involved. And he's involved not only on a cosmic level, on a universal level, dealing with all kinds of things all the time, but he's involved with you personally, and he wants to guide and lead your life, which kind of leads to the next thing of purpose. So he's present, he's a person, and he has purpose. He has purpose for your life.
You are such a pastor. You
I
just
can't
came up with
help the
3 P's.
I can't
in
help that.
One
It's
quick
a problem.
phrase.
It's a problem I have.
It is.
I'm going to start talking to you that way. I'm going to find alliteration in all things. But to me, an awareness of that,
Yes.
and that God is present, he's personal, he's got a purpose for my life. That is the fear of the Lord. It's this awareness that he is the primary agent in my life. He's the one guiding and leading. He's the one I look to for direction. He knows better than I do. Like he knows how to run my life better than I know how to run my life.
Yeah. And I think with that, you have to spend time getting to know him.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
and understand
reading,
his heart and principles.
yes.
Yep.
Who his character, his nature, I think that's why reading scripture matters. We get to know how God works, even though so much of it still is a mystery to us. We gain a general understanding of this is who God says he is, Exodus 34. And then also we see that consistent nature of God in everything. We see it in Jesus. And then we see it in the early church when Paul is explaining how to live life, and all of that, and the way the Holy Spirit continues that work in us. So I think personally getting to know God, you have to have that personal relationship and know who he is to be able to know what he desires for you.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that matters.
Yeah.
That's part of that.
It is. Yeah. So
And then through that, maybe you understand what his purpose is.
what he's all about. Yeah. And once you understand what he's all about, living in alignment with that is wisdom.
Okay.
Living in the awareness and alignment, I would say, of God's person, his presence, his purpose, is wisdom. To me, that's what it means to fear the Lord. That's kind of how I would define it. I think the more common way of understanding wisdom, is just don't be dumb, right? Like be smart.
Is that how simple it can be?
Like
Don't
think
be
about
dumb.
think about the outcome of the decision you're about to make, and is that the outcome that you want?
Yeah.
Like that's one way.
Thinking about the consequences of your actions, which we teach our kids from a young
all the
age,
time.
right?
Yeah.
If you do this will potentially be the result. And as someone who has lived life ahead of our children, we try to connect those two for them of here will be the response if you choose this, or the natural consequence, or a consequence that I'm going to give you if you choose this.
Yeah.
And so we're making that connection for them.
Yep. Yeah. So I think wisdom is like, if we could say, if defining it as that, like, I think that's the thing. Like, if we could say there's one thing we could give our kid, you think about Solomon when God came to him and said, what is it you want from me? As he was becoming king of all things, you found favor with me. What can I give you? And what did he ask for?
He asked for
wisdom. And God honored that, and not only gave him that, but gave him everything else in connection to that. And so you think about, God has created a world that naturally teaches us to be wise. And here's what I mean by that is the natural order of things allow us to feel consequences for either aligning with the natural order or pushing against the natural order. So gravity, like, you learn, if you follow the law of gravity, you will have less injuries in life, and you will live safer. And if you choose not to follow the law of gravity, you will experience some consequences, some pain that teach you how to follow the law of gravity, which is wisdom. God has put that in place, right? So it's like we live in a world that wants to kind of, naturally, there's an aspect of our world that wants to move us towards wisdom. But then obviously we live in a world marred by sin that wants to move us obviously away from wisdom.
So if wisdom really is following, I guess you could even say obedience to God in the way he's designed things, then it really is like, if you're not following that path, you're choosing things that are your own desire in a way, and that will lead to probably some
problems,
dumb decisions,
trauma,
and some problems,
pain, hurt, disappointment.
And that makes sense then in the parenting world, that if that's what we want to offer our kids, right, that is something we have to offer because we are further ahead in life. When you said defining wisdom, the first thought that came to my mind is like, it's just experience gained as well, right? It's experience gained through walking life with the Lord or without the Lord. Because I can share wisdom because I have a season of my life from high school where I was not walking with the Lord. And there was still wisdom gained from that season, even though I made poor choices, right? I learned from those consequences, and that now on this side of where I am, I can now share with my kids, hey, these are reasons why you wouldn't want to do that because I made some bad choices. And so I think life experience also gives us wisdom. We gain it from the Lord and learning and following him, but we also gain it because of our life experiences and if we're willing to learn from them. And then that is something we have to offer our kids in parenting or other people around us too, right?
Yeah, and then it goes on to impact every area of our life. If you gain wisdom, that then, I mean, you see it in Proverbs. Proverbs hits all of these areas of life, but the foundation of all of it is wisdom. And we think about, like, if you want your kids to learn how to do relationships, it really starts with wisdom. If you want them to learn how to manage money, it starts with wisdom. If you want them to learn how to communicate well, or live with integrity, or be a good friend, or a good brother or sister, or a good like, it's all starts with wisdom. Pretty much every aspect of their life, even like sports and performance, which is just a huge thing right now in our world today. It's youth sports and youth performance and all of that. Like, but if your goal is, this is just an avenue to learn wisdom, there's a lot you can learn.
Yeah, there really
about
is.
how to be wise while you're playing
going
a
after
sport
things
or
that you
dancing
love,
or singing
right.
or whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah.
It permeates every area of life because it all comes back to the fear of the Lord and understanding that, you know, who he is and what he wants is what is best ultimately.
So then how do we bring it from this more like big, grand philosophical? Because I'm thinking of parents who might be listening going, I am not going to sit my 5-year-old down and teach them and read them Proverbs and give them my wisdom. Like that you just can't.
Yes.
I mean, we can barely do that. I read somewhere that teenagers have you get them for that first minute in a lecture, which we love to give long lectures. And then after that, you really don't get them.
Yeah.
So what are you giving them in that first minute? So whether it's a toddler or a teenager, how are we imparting wisdom? What can we do to help that be the thing if we feel like that is
Yeah.
what we want them to have.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of ways. I think it starts with just, okay, keeping that as a goal to say, okay, I want my child to grow in wisdom, and wisdom is the fear of the Lord. And we just explained what that means. So when it comes to, let's just say, when it comes to navigating entertainment, right? You can take the approach of, well, we just put a lot of blockers on things, and we have a lot of restrictions on things, and they can only watch certain things.
Right.
And that's okay for a while, but there will
You're
come
like protecting
a time,
them, and that's a good thing.
You're guarding them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But there comes a time where you have to shift from guarding to guiding, because they're going to see the movie. They're going to see the show. They're going to get exposed
they're going to go to
whatever it
house.
is you've been.
Yep.
Yeah. And so whatever you've been hiding from them about the big bad world, eventually they're going to have to encounter that. And then they're going to have to make some decisions about it. So it's learning the appropriate times to allow your kids to be exposed to the appropriate things, but with you right alongside of them, guiding the process. And so our good friend Tammy, who would watch movies with her kids, and she would pause it at any point in the movie and say, hey, y'all, like, what do y'all think of that? What do you think of that couple doing that right there? Or what do you think about the fact that he just lied to his friend? And they would process, and that's guiding. That goes from guarding to guiding. It's like, you're not hiding them from the reality that people lie. What you're allowing them to do is see that people do. So how do we process and filter that information? And what it allows them to do is it teaches them ever so slowly how to navigate the world. And that's what wisdom is required to navigate this world well, to be able to encounter things and then make informed decisions about how I should respond to this. Should I stay or should I go? Should I address it? Should I not address it? Should I agree with it or disagree with it?
And I think that's really good to think of, like, the guarding happens early on in parenting young kids, right? Because we are put in their lives to protect them, to shield them from, like, don't run out in the street. You got to hold mom and dad's hand when you're walking. Like, don't throw food. You know, like, you're just teaching them basic skills, but that is you imparting wisdom into them through just practical skills that they're going to need later. Yeah. But then at some point, and I think that's why this shift between, you know, your kids getting older and now becoming more young adults, or not young adults, middle schoolers into young adulthood, parents shifting from that guarding to guidance. That's hard.
Because there's risk involved.
There's risk. But I keep thinking, as you're talking, like, it moves from me just like enforcing my wisdom, right? Because that's what guarding is like, I'm the one carrying the wisdom, so good. I'm protecting them with it, to now they need to gain their own wisdom. And so to do that, they might have to fail.
Yep.
They are going to have to feel some consequences. I'm going to have to get over what was my guarding out of wisdom. Now what sometimes happens for, I think, parents of middle schoolers and older is we guard out of fear.
And we guard too long.
And what we're doing is we think we're still doing it because we know better, and we do have more wisdom. We do. But now they have to gain their own. And so what wisdom would say is, don't guard anymore, because now you're guarding out of fear. You need to guide, like you said. And now you're walking next to them, guiding them in their wisdom. Yeah. And so you have to let them. And so I think, like, a practical, what that would look like is, we know some families who would say, we are not going to let our kids have a phone until they graduate, or date until they are out of high school, like no dating. Where I would say, then you're going to send them off into the world, and you're not going to be there to guide them. You still are a guide, but, like, wouldn't you rather walk through that with them? Yeah. Whether it's having a phone, learning how to navigate technology, learning how to navigate emotions and hormones in a relationship while they're
still in
the safety of your home, with you guiding them. Not what you're doing there is guarding, and then what happens later. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. That's just what came to mind.
I think those are great insights. I think also letting your kids experience some adversity.
Yeah.
and some resistance in
That's
life.
so hard to do as parents.
It's so hard. Yeah. But it's like, again, it's all risk involved. You have to weigh the risk and say what's worth it. The risk is, it's remove the baby gate. At what point do you remove the baby gate? Because you can still fall down the stairs at 15 years old. And so you have to decide, especially in an old house like ours with slippery stairs. So you have to decide, like, at what point do I do this? And then help them process the result of it. Celebrate when they do it well, and you're there to talk and grieve or help them feel better when they don't do it well. I love the analogy of the lawnmower parent, which is, the helicopter parent was like, I'm always hovering above to watch. And the new language is the lawnmower parent, who I mow down every obstacle in your path.
I'm in front
and
of
you
you.
come along behind me.
And it's going to be nice
and it's
and easy.
Don't worry, because I've taken care of everything. And what happens is you do not raise resilient children or wise children. They don't know how to navigate disappointment. They don't know how to navigate emotionally. They don't know how to navigate challenges. They don't know how to navigate conflicts. They don't know how to navigate maybe even like not being the best at something or failing at something.
Failing, not making the team, not getting the job.
Yep.
All of it.
Yeah. So that, to me, that all plays into, you're trying to raise children who have wisdom, who know how to navigate the world in which we live, make good choices. One of the things that keeping wisdom in mind does is it empowers. It gives the child agency. It gives them a level of power, an appropriate level of power to be able to say, I get to make some choices, and then I've got to deal with the consequence of that choice. Yep. And so they get some money and they say, I want to spend all that money on this new pair of shoes. And you have to talk to them about, okay, let's weigh it out, pros and cons.
Is that a wise thing to do with all your money?
If you decide to let them make that choice, then oftentimes what comes around is like, hey, can I go get McDonald's? Well, you don't have any money.
Remember, you bought the shoes.
Right. Yeah. So there's ways that our world will infuse wisdom into the inhabitants of this world, because God set it up that way. But parents will oftentimes intervene to where the natural order of wisdom being infused into the next generation gets short-circuited.
Yes. And then they aren't able to go down that path to gain their own.
They're not empowered. They don't have resilience.
Yeah.
They don't know how to make good choices because they've never had to make a choice, or they've never been allowed to make a choice. I think of times, and there are times when our kids will still ask us in different settings, like, hey, can I have, and they don't really anymore, but pretty late in their childhood, early adolescence would be like, hey, can I have an apple, or can I have a snack, or can I have some goldfish? Yeah. And there are times where it catches me off guard because they're still asking me what they can eat. Yeah. Now there's a level of, I still appreciate that, but there's also times where I'm like, okay, have we held this a little too tightly? Right. Like, do we need to teach our kids how to make their own choices about what they eat? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think back to when Laylee, our very independent firstborn, when we were at a party, we were hosting people over or something. She had her little hot dog.
A birthday party of hers, yeah.
And she thought, I'm going to put salt on my hot dog. I don't know why. We've never put salt on a hot dog. I don't know what made her think
she loves salt. She still oversalts.
She does oversalt still. Yeah. But you let her do it. And she was probably at an age where I would have just been like, no, don't do it. She was sitting with a bunch of older
girls.
Yes.
And she wanted to exert her independence. So she just poured salt. All over that hot dog. It was white.
And you told her to eat it.
Yeah, I said, you got to eat this. She took a bite and her eyes started to water, and she just forced it down and said, I like it.
With her pride.
It's so good.
It's so good.
But then it sat there for the rest of the party, of course. She didn't touch it again.
But even as a kid, that is a great natural consequence of learning. That is a level of independence that she now learned in the safety. I mean, that's a silly one, but also a good example of, now she gained a little bit of wisdom there.
And your mom, she has her little rule, take what you want, but eat what you take. Yeah. So again, a food thing of I'm not going to tell you what you can or can't put on your plate, but whatever you do, Like it
You're
needs to
gonna
be
eat
gone.
it.
Yeah.
And we hold to
So
it.
there's just this balance in all of these things. It's relationships. It's their friendships. It's once they start to have more independence and they want to go hang out or they want to spend time doing this or spend money on this. And it's trying to help them navigate with the end goal in mind. And I think this really applies, especially as you get into those like adolescent years, to begin to empower your child to have wisdom, to understand what good choices and bad choices.
Yeah,
and
you
then
have to
deal
let
with
them
it.
make some choices, and then you guide them through those as well. And I think as you do that, even in their younger years, and the choices that you'll start guiding them and making will change. They'll get bigger, and the consequences will get bigger if they don't make a good one. And as much as you want to just protect them from those consequences, you have to kind of let it play out.
You do.
Sometimes. And that is the harder part of parenting is what it does to us. And so I think remembering if they're going to gain wisdom, some of it has to be the release of our control.
Yeah.
For my kids to gain wisdom in a decision they're making, and I might look at it gritting my teeth thinking I would not make that decision. You just have to kind of bite your tongue, walk it out with them, and let it play out, and then have great conversation and rapport through it. And that's hard.
Yeah, it is. We want to save them of that pain.
Right.
But in many ways, it's not the way God parents us.
It's not.
Like God allows us to live in this world with agency, with a level of empowerment to have free will and make the choices we want to make. But He's there for us when we falter. He's there for us when we're dealing with the negative consequence of a choice we made. And that's ultimately, the better place as your kids grow older to be able to do it. What is Andy Stanley's progression in his book of the 3 levels? It's the discipline early on, keep them alive. And then it's
you're just protecting them.
And then it's coaching them as they get a little bit older. And then it's becoming their friend, kind of like a counselor.
You're moving more away from control. It's what it is. And you are, as you release control, they get to start putting the wisdom that you've given them into practice. They get to start practicing it themselves. Yeah.
And at the core of it, if the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and if they learn to value wisdom as well, then what it will do as they grow is it will help them see the closer you are to Jesus, the better life will. The
better
for you.
You'll be able to follow the way He lives, the way He's asked us to live, and obey Him, and that won't make your life perfect or easy. But it will lead to more fulfillment and more wisdom.
So a lot of good information out there on parenting, a lot of good books, a lot of good specific
for like
case
specific
situations
seasons or
gender
issues
differences or all that kind of stuff. But I think in all good parenting advice, at the core of it, I think you can find a connection to wisdom.
I think so.
And
I think that's
and I think
very
biblically,
wise of you.
I think it's the Bible. I think biblically, that's what you see as really the core of what we're to pass down to the next generation. So if you've got kids in your life or the younger generation in your life, and you're a mentor or you're an aunt or an uncle or a mom or a dad, be thinking about where does wisdom fit in your strategic approach to parenting children, and try to infuse it.
It's good.
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on When We Walk. So glad that you were with us today, and we can't wait to be with you next time.